Hey friends, this is Amanda with the Living on River Time YouTube channel, and this week's episode is going to be on packing for our adventures and a trip that we did in 2025 to the Denali Highway. So the first part of this episode will cover packing and what we do to pack for our adventures, our weekend adventures, and the last half will cover trip logistics and getting out on the water. So a little bit about what's happening here is before we put everything in the truck, we want to make sure that we have everything we need or everything we're going to need for the weekend. So right now I'm laying out the boats that we are going to be using. Each of these boats is about 50 pounds. They are personal cataract style, frameless, inflatable boats. I'll post the brand and the full packing list in the description. But essentially what I'll do is I'll unpack each of these boats, make sure they have everything they need to be put together properly. So make sure that they have all of their straps, their bags, their oars, and anything else that we might need in order for the boats to actually function. And then included with that is always a patch kit just in case, which we actually used this trip. We try not to ever use a patch kit. We try to take care of our rafts as best as possible, but sometimes things happen and you never want to be on an adventure without a patch kit. A few other things I make sure that we have are life vests and pumps. We have two different types of pumps for these boats. One of them will hook up to either the side-by-side or the truck and do most of the inflating, and then we have a smaller hand pump that will finish it off. And again, I'll link the full packing list below in the description. Other things that I make sure to have and lay out are waders, wading boots, the wading bags that we have, and any other miscellaneous things that I need personally to be comfortable on the water. Of course, that usually includes things like snacks, my camera so that I am shooting footage for all of you, and anything that Bella needs because she is usually on my boat when we are out fishing. And in case this looks like an insane amount of gear, I will tell you that this particular trip we are going pretty far out into the backcountry, so there's not much support, if any, out there. So we just bring what we know we might need, and even things that we might not need but would be helpful in an emergency situation. I thought I'd give you a little tour of our setup and how we put things together, how we make sure we haven't forgotten anything. Inevitably, we are going to forget something, but we try our best not to. We've done this a lot, and we try to bring everything we would need or ever think we could need. So as you saw me put together before, we have all three of our boats. I've laid out all of our waders and things like that. We usually have two wader bags, one for our actual waders and then one for our boots. And then the changing mat always goes inside the wader bag. And then we all have a net. So each of us has a net. We all have packs. The little extras that you'll see in here are things like life jackets for the dogs. We each have our own life jackets, and then Ditz has her own sort of rash guard, her own little wetsuit because she gets cold. All right, so let's pack. And let's get on the road, friends. Fun fact about Alaska. There are only about 14 to 17,000 miles of public road in the state of Alaska. That leaves Approximately, according to Google, around 80 to 82% of the state is inaccessible via the road system. That being said, I am coming from the Anchorage area in South Central Alaska, and very similar to other places that we've lived in, like Idaho and in Northern California, everywhere we want to go is at least between an hour and 4 hours away. I feel like that's something you can't ever really get away from. So this particular trek that we're doing is almost 5 to 6 hours away, of course. And this particular weekend, we've been really lucky to have the weather that we have. So when we're planning trips and we're planning weekends like this, our packing list usually reflects any sort of weather that we might run into. Everything in Alaska is dictated by the weather. So even though it was forecasted to be clear skies, beautiful sunny days, of course, I've probably packed a rain jacket and some sort of windbreaker just in case. Because undoubtedly the weatherman is going to be wrong and we're going to run into something that we didn't expect. And I feel like that's pretty standard when you're going out into the wilderness. Hey friends. Hey friends, come up to the Alaska Range with us this weekend. We're going to be fishing for some Arctic grayling and lake trout. We have our side-by-side behind us. We're pulling it on our trailer. So we're going to take it out and see if we can get our boats on the water. So come along with us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. We're currently on the, what highway are we on? The Glen Highway. We're currently on the Glen Highway, and yeah, we'll see how long it takes us. Hey friends, so we made it to our first fishing spot. We're on the river, we made camp, and we're gonna see if we can catch some grayling. So come along with us. Something I've really enjoyed about carrying a camera around is that I get to poke my head under the water every now and then. And we honestly, as a group, the three of us didn't do very well this evening. So right now I am fishing what's called a gurgler. It kind of looks like a mouse. They're not quite, the water's a little fast right now for a mouse. So I think I'm going to change to something a little different depending on what I have. It looks like I only have mice, so maybe I'll change to one of these. We'll see how it works. And this particular afternoon, we didn't really do very well. I had on a couple different mouse patterns. All of the patterns were too big for the water we were fishing and the fish we were fishing for. This particular spot was mostly for grayling. The water was just fast. It was a little bit warmer than I thought it would be. And my flies that I had just weren't really what they wanted, which is totally fine. We were here for the solstice, and I was able to get some really great footage of that, so enjoy. The sun came out again the very next day. The water was nice and cold and clear, and the fish did not disappoint. Lake trout are Alaska's largest freshwater fish, and they can be very old. They have a very slow growth period because they live in such intense environments. And not very many people know that they are also classified as a char, not necessarily a trout. We had done a ton of research, and we're finally able to put that research to the test, and it paid off. So thanks for coming along with me, friends. I hope you learned a little something new. I hope you have a good packing list to get you started on your weekend adventures, and we'll catch you in the next one.